What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Republic Frequency. That's right, we have a name for our podcast. The first video that I did was very much about the first episode of the Clone Wars, and we didn't really have a name or an identity now. Now we have kind of a stream overview and some talking points that we're going to go over today. I have done a decent amount of research, and we are currently now hosted through Buzzsprout. So if you have any, my elbow's filthy. If you have any issues with watching this podcast right now, right here, head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much wherever you will find a podcast, and you should be able to find the Republic Frequency. We are very excited to be on Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts. I almost said partnered, that's probably the incorrect term. But we are live streaming this second episode, and we are still kind of finding our footing. So please bear with me, and please don't be too harsh on me for now. I do apologize, and we do have a bit of a stream overview of kind of what we're going to go over today. So to kind of give you a little bit of information about the previous episode, we went over the first episode of the Clone Wars animated series. So Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 1, Episode 1, which was Ambush. Somehow I remember that. I don't know how. Can't remember names, but I remember Star Wars stuff apparently. And yeah, that was around a 15-minute episode. That was just me in the car, kind of talking to my phone. But this time we have an actual setup. You can see some beautiful Star Wars memorabilia behind me, a couple of paintings and whatnot, and a lot of books, a nice looking helmet. I was trying to see if I had anything on my desk, but no. Just to kind of give you some more information, we are going to be doing a giveaway as well on our 10th episode. I'm going to set it now as our 10th episode. I did not have that planned. But our 10th episode, we are going to be doing a giveaway, and that is going to be a 3D printed, fully painted, custom Obi-Wan Kenobi lightsaber. And that is going to be given away to one lucky viewer. And essentially, for you to be entered into that giveaway, you would just need to subscribe and leave a comment in our live chat or on one of our podcast episodes. But yeah, the most important thing is going to be to follow us for more, and you can definitely be entered into that giveaway. I do definitely appreciate you joining us in this episode and joining us for the live stream. If you are, we do have a live chat on the right hand side, so if you are interested in leaving a comment down below or saying hi or may the force be with you or anything like that, please feel free to. But yeah, let's get jumped into today's episode. So to give you a little bit of a breakdown on what Season 1, Episode 2, what's it called? Let's see here. Rising Malevolence. For some reason I thought it was Rise of Malevolence. I'm not too sure why. But yeah, to give you a bit of a breakdown on what we are seeing here with Rising Malevolence, I'm just going to give you kind of a brief overview of what the episode's going to be about. So this episode immediately shifts the tone of the series into something much darker and more serious. The Republic is facing a weapon they do not understand. Clone troopers are stranded and fighting for survival, and General Grievous is presented as a genuine threat for one of the first times in the series. Obviously, this is episode 2 of the Clone Wars. This came out back in like 2008 or something like that. This episode also starts laying the groundwork for what eventually makes Clone Wars so beloved for fans: emotional clone stories, stronger Jedi relationships, and the reality of war. So let me just talk about the Clone Wars TV series as a whole. And obviously this is a live episode. There's going to be some mistakes. There's going to be me tripping over what I'm saying, that kind of thing. But yeah, let me give you a bit of a history lesson on the Clone Wars. So, from my perspective. So, I kind of started watching the Clone Wars probably 10 or 15 years ago. I grew up in a pretty sheltered sheltered livelihood, I will say. So was one of the first things that I really gravitated to kind of start watching Star Wars, and it was something pretty innocent, and being somebody who grew up pretty sheltered, my parents kind of allowed it. So it was an interesting situation. But the Clone Wars themselves was definitely something that I really gravitated towards and that I really enjoyed. And that was simply because of the clones themselves, as well as the Jedi stories as a whole. We really got to see more of Anakin Skywalker, of Obi-Wan Kenobi, separate from the movies. And we can't really say that of any other series back then, at least, or around that time. Like, obviously we have Star Wars Rebels, which is also an animated series, which is fantastic in its own right. It focuses on after the Empire has taken over and there's very few Jedi left, and Darth Vader and some Maul scenes and all that kind of stuff. But the Clone Wars themselves really focuses on the Republic, not the High Republic, just the Republic as a whole. And it focuses on Anakin Skywalker a heap. It focuses on Obi-Wan Kenobi a heap, as well as Yoda, Mace Windu, Plo Koon, Ki-Adi-Mundi, and a bunch of other High Council Jedi as a whole. And for me, as well as obviously the clones, for me the clone-focused episodes are really the best. And that is because sorry, I've just got somebody else messaging me on my thing. I don't know why. I don't know why my phone doesn't shut off. It's strange. My phone is just black screen, apparently. And it keeps being on the bird feeder. I don't know why. But yeah, anyway. The clone stories themselves really focus on, obviously, the clones. And the kind of what... Every clone is different. Every clone is themselves. They have their own style. Comparing Rex to Cody is a great example. Rex has his very gung-ho Anakin Skywalker-esque vibe, whereas Cody is a lot more like Obi-Wan Kenobi. He is very tactical. He thinks before he just runs in guns blazing like Rex. So for me, the best thing for this is going to be in the Clone Wars themselves are the clones and the stories that come from that. So I'm going to kind of dive into an episode recap of Season 1, Episode 2, Rising Malevolence. And again, if you have any questions or anything like that, drop them in the chat below. We are a very small podcast / YouTube channel for now. And at the moment it is just me, but we are going to have some familiar faces drop back in and visit to and kind of join our podcast. We're hoping to also have some Star Wars specific maybe actors or guests join the podcast as well. But that is a lofty goal, and that is something that we may not see for a couple of episodes. Like that. There we go. That's a little bit better of a camera angle. Okay, so to give you a bit of an episode recap. So Season 1, Episode 2 opens with Republic ships being mysteriously destroyed in deep space. Jedi Master Plo Koon and his clone troopers aboard the cruiser Triumphant are suddenly attacked by the Separatist superweapon known as the Malevolence. The Malevolence uses a massive ion cannon capable of disabling entire Republic fleets in a single blast. Once the Republic ships lose power, General Grievous launches a brutal assault and destroys them with ease. Plo Koon and a handful of surviving clone troopers escape aboard a small escape pod and become stranded in space. With limited oxygen and no communication, they are forced to survive while Grievous hunts for survivors. Meanwhile, Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano, which is Anakin Skywalker's Padawan, are sent to investigate the disappearance of the fleet because they were, I believe, the closest ship slash troops slash Jedi to where Plo Koon was. Their mission slowly uncovers the existence of the Malevolence and its devastating new weapon. The episode ends with Anakin and Ahsoka successfully locating the survivors while Grievous prepares to continue using the Malevolence against the Republic. So, the Malevolence, as it kind of goes into there, is a Separatist super weapon built in secret, and it is the most powerful weapon that the Separatists have. It is obviously a warship, and any ship that gets caught in its ion blast is immediately null and void, no longer usable. So it's definitely a danger, and it's one that they need to take out, and it's expressed like that in the opening 10 minutes of the episode. Bear in mind, the Clone Wars episodes are only around 24 minutes. And I would love to do a watch party, but unfortunately, for copyright reasons and that kind of thing, we can't really jump into specific watch parties and Star Wars content. The Malevolence immediately establishes itself as one of the most dangerous weapons introduced in early Clone Wars. Unlike the Death Star, which relies on fear and massive destruction, the Malevolence weaponizes helplessness. Its ion cannon disables Republic cruisers instantly, leaving them unable to fight back. The Republic fleet is completely caught off guard, and the Separatists suddenly gain a major strategic advantage. The episode does a great job making the Republic feel vulnerable. Up until this point in the series, the Republic often appears strong and in control. Rising Malevolence changes that very quickly. The Malevolence arc also helps establish the scale of the Clone Wars. Entire fleets are being wiped out, and the Jedi are struggling to respond to rapidly evolving threats. So, to kind of talk about that a little bit more as well. In this episode, we see a couple of different Jedi, and to kind of go into what the episode's about a little bit more. So obviously, Plo Koon's ship, the Triumphant, gets destroyed. They escape on escape pods and are stranded in space without any communication to or by anybody. Essentially, the episode ends with Plo Koon and the clones that he escaped in his escape pod with, I believe it was 3 other clones, or 4 other clones. And they ended up escaping, and Anakin Skywalker ends up assisting / rescuing them. So, the big thing in this episode is helplessness. Not being able to do anything and waiting, and we see a lot of the clones' fear, and a lot of kind of how the clones feel. Obviously, we're only 1 episode into a series, and this is the 2nd episode. So, we don't really have a whole lot to go on. And the other thing as well is when it comes to an episode or a arc as a whole, like a 3-episode arc or a 4-episode arc, we don't really see that a whole lot in the Clone Wars either. Like, the Malevolence arc is 3 episodes long. We see the Zillo Beast arc a couple of seasons later, which is, I believe is 3 episodes long as well as the Maul arc. And I believe there are a couple other arcs as well. But it's very rare in the Clone Wars to see an episodic arc. So we don't really see that a whole heap. But when it comes to these specific episodes, or this episode in this arc, I will say, we see a lot of fear in the clone troopers, in the clones that are with Plo Koon. We see a lot of fear. We see a lot of anger and a lot of despair as a whole. Plo does a really good job of staying under control, not being afraid. Obviously, he's a Jedi, he's trained for this, he knows what he's doing, and he does a really good job of directing his men. He cares for his troops. He cares for the clones that he fights with, and which is a pretty rare scene in the Clone Wars. There are a lot, I shouldn't say a pretty rare scene. What am I saying? I shouldn't say a pretty rare scene. A lot of the Jedi do care for their clones and the soldiers that they fight alongside. However, there are Jedi who don't care for their troops, who don't really care for life as a whole. We see that a couple of times in Star Wars itself and in the Clone Wars. So it's really interesting in this episode how Grievous and Count Dooku instill fear in the Republic soldiers, in the clones. Even in the Jedi themselves, like Ahsoka was afraid for Plo Koon. The connection with them was pretty solid. She was afraid for his safety because he was the one who actually found Ahsoka as a youngling to bring to the Jedi Academy. So she has a bond to Plo Koon as well, and that isn't really used a whole heap. But it's definitely interesting to see specifically like how that bond plays out and how it makes Ahsoka feel as a Padawan, as a Jedi, as somebody who's still learning how to feel and how to handle her feelings. Another big part of this episode is the portrayal of General Grievous as a whole. In Revenge of the Sith, Grievous sometimes comes across as an overly theatrical or cowardly character. Here, he feels tactical, intimidating, and ruthless. He calmly oversees the destruction of Republic ships and shows absolutely no mercy, which obviously as somebody, he's not trained in the dark side, but he was trained by a dark side wielder, somebody who wields the dark side. They're going to teach him and train him to be unyielding, and that's what he is. He has 4 arms that wield 4 lightsabers and a myriad of other weapons. He has blasters, he has knives, he has a bunch of different stuff. So he is definitely a scary character as a whole, and I really enjoy that, and I enjoy how, as well, speaking about how the Clone Wars fills out characters, I really enjoy how it fills out Grievous as a whole, because we don't really see him a whole heap in the movies. The only real character, like filling in of a character, comes from the Clone Wars series for Grievous. We see him briefly in Revenge of the Sith. I don't even think we see him in Attack of the Clones. Maybe we do. Maybe not. I'm not too sure. My brain's not braining for that one. But that's another element of the Clone Wars that I really love, how it fills out these characters. It fills out Anakin Skywalker. It fills out Kenobi. It fills out Ahsoka. Ahsoka wouldn't have existed without the Clone Wars. Like, if we just had the Ahsoka TV series without the Clone Wars, even without Rebels, we would have been like, so without the Clone Wars and Rebels came out, we would have been like, who the heck's this lady? Oh, she's Anakin's apprentice? Since when? So that's why, for me, I see a lot of people who are like, oh, it's a kid's show, it's an animated show, oh, it really isn't. And it's like a lot of kids shows nowadays where, and I'm saying it's like a 13 plus, it's PG, I believe. It's a lot of teen shows or younger children's shows, I should say, or older children's shows, are really portrayed towards adults as well. So adults can sit there and watch it with their kids and be like, oh, this is interesting, I want to keep watching. And for me, it's easily my favorite Star Wars content. I've watched the Clone Wars 5 or 6 times all the way through, easily, and I'm rewatching it again now. He calmly oversees the destruction of Republic ships and shows absolutely no mercy towards survivors. The episode frames him almost like a horror villain, stalking weakened targets through space. His confidence aboard the Malevolence also reinforces how dominant the Separatists feel in this moment. This version of Grievous feels much closer to his appearance in the 2003 Clone Wars micro-series, where he was portrayed as a terrifying and unstoppable character. So, kind of moving on to Plo Koon as well. Again, in the Clone War or Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace, and the Revenge of the Sith. I don't know why I couldn't remember that one. He's not really spoken about a whole heap. He has probably like 5 minutes of screen time. That's it in those 3 movies. Plo Koon, again, is given a much larger role here. He's given probably 2 hours through all 7 series, which isn't a whole heap, but it's for episodes that are 20 to 25 minutes long. It kind of makes sense. Plo Koon becomes the emotional center of this episode. While stranded in space, he consistently refuses to abandon his clone troops. He treats them as individuals rather than expendable soldiers. And we spoke about this as well in the previous episode, where he is portrayed as somebody... Sorry, what am I saying? Yoda treats his clones as somebody who... as individuals, as people. He asks them specifically, take off your helmets, let me see your faces, that kind of thing. So... in this regard, I'm just adjusting my chair. In this regard, it's nice to see that other Jedi treat their clone troops similar to what Yoda does, because that's an important thing, in my opinion. They are soldiers, of course, first and foremost. They are bred to fight a war, but they are also human. The line, "not to me," is one of the most important early Clone Wars moments because it immediately separates Plo Koon from many other Jedi portrayed during the war. This episode begins developing one of the biggest strengths of the Clone Wars, giving humanity and personality to the clone troopers. The clones are not portrayed as faceless background soldiers. They are scared, loyal, determined, and emotional. And that's the thing. At the end of the day, they are an army, and this is the thing. When it comes to the sequels, I will say, the Stormtroopers... I don't know why I couldn't remember that. I was going to say the Empire soldiers. That doesn't really make sense. The Stormtroopers are treated as an army. That's it. They're not really looked at a whole heap. They're not really spoken about. They're just one of a million, however many Stormtroopers there were. It's only in the books or the comic books that we really kind of see, oh, they're an individual. Oh, this person had this. This person didn't want to follow Darth Vader's commands. He didn't want to follow the Empire's commands. He had morality. And that's the thing. In the Clone Wars, before Order 66, the clones felt morality. They felt bad for their brothers dying, for killing innocent civilians, if they ever killed innocent civilians, which I'm sure they did. Every war has casualty, and it's an unfortunate thing, but even today with the Iran war, there's casualty. I'm sure there is on both sides. So they had feelings to separate themselves from just being like, I don't care, I'm just here to do a job. Unlike Jango Fett, who was kind of like that a little bit. The relationship between Plo Koon and the clones also foreshadows the deeper clone-focused arcs later in the series. Now, moving kind of on to Anakin and Ahsoka's dynamic as well. This is kind of moving on to that to kind of get this episode going, because we are 25 minutes in almost. This episode also continues building the relationship between Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano. Their mentor-student relationship is still rough around the edges, but the chemistry between them is already clear. Ahsoka is impulsive and eager to prove herself, while Anakin often acts more like an older brother than a traditional Jedi Master. Looking at you, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Their banter helps balance the darker tone of the episode, while also making their relationship feel believable. The early nickname Sky Guy immediately establishes a more casual dynamic that eventually becomes one of the emotional cores of the entire series, and also Snips as well. Anakin calls Ahsoka Snips all the time. And to kind of talk a little bit about the... That's weird. To kind of talk a little bit about the relationship between Ahsoka, Anakin, and Obi-Wan. Lots of times we see in this series and the movies the way Obi-Wan treated Anakin was very much of, I'm better than you, kind of. Not today, my young apprentice, my young Padawan, this, that, blah, blah, blah. We shall not do this, we shall not do that, blah, blah, blah. I think the way Anakin really treats Ahsoka is kind of how he wanted to be treated a little bit. How he teaches her and how he leads, I guess, was how he wanted to be treated. And a lot of people say, well, you know, if Anakin was with Qui-Gon, if Qui-Gon trained Anakin, he wouldn't have fallen to the dark side. Qui-Gon was much less, I almost said much less lenient, was much more lenient compared to Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan was very strict. This is how we're going to obey orders. The council told us this. This is what we need to do. We're going to do it to a T. And even in the books that I've read, the books that are behind, there we go. A lot of these books have Obi-Wan Kenobi in them. And the way his leadership style is as a Jedi Master, as somebody who is on the council, or was on the council, he's very strict. And I think the way Ahsoka and Anakin's relationship is and their dynamic is very much reminiscent of Anakin being like, this is how I wanted to be treated, so this is how I'm going to treat Ahsoka. And don't get me wrong, he's not always like, you're all good, blah, blah, blah. He definitely reprimands her quite a few times. But he's always like, you have to get up, you have to fight, you have to lead. And we see that in many other episodes as well. Some of the best scenes, I will say, in this episode are the destruction of the Republic fleet by the Malevolence ion cannon is easily the standout sequence of this episode. The scene creates immediate tension and establishes how powerless the Republic is against this new weapon. The visuals of disabling cruisers drifting silently through space before being destroyed helped create one of the darkest openings in early Clone Wars. And I will also add on to that and say when Ahsoka and Anakin jump out of hyperspace to find Plo Koon and his clones, they find wreckage of ships drifting, and it's like a graveyard. And I believe Ahsoka kind of calls it a graveyard as well, or Anakin does, one or the other. Because there's like thousands and thousands and thousands of dead. Not that you see that, but each Republic cruiser has, I have no idea how many people they have on them, but I'm sure it's tens of thousands if they've killed one or two ships, you know? So it's definitely something that is portrayed very well, and he's kind of like, oh boy, this is not good. They have to kill this thing. And we're going to go into that in later episodes when it comes to how they ended up defeating the Malevolence as a whole. Plo Koon is definitely the MVP of this episode. His calm leadership, compassion toward the clones, and refusal to abandon his men immediately make him stand out among the Jedi. This episode played a huge role in making him a fan favorite character. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the quote, "not to me," meaning, I believe one of the clones asked, "Are we expendable?" And Plo was like, "Not to me, you're not." This line perfectly summarizes the heart of the episode and the growing humanity of the clone troopers within the series. And then kind of to go into the lore a little bit, kind of at the end, This episode expands on clone individuality and emotional depth, continues development of Anakin and Ahsoka's relationship, helps establish the darker tone Clone Wars later becomes known for, shows the Republic struggling to adapt during wartime, and reinforces Grievous as a legitimate military threat, which he was. Definitely was. Grievous is also one of my favorite characters, and kind of a bit of random knowledge. If you've never heard there's a scene there's a little clip going around YouTube with Grievous he was translated into German. It's somewhat terrifying, let me just say that. The Malevolence arc was one of the first major multi-episode arcs in the Clone Wars, as I mentioned earlier. Plo Koon becomes significantly more popular with fans after this episode aired. The Ion Cannon concept later appears in other Star Wars media, including Rebels. Early Clone Wars space battles still hold up visually extremely well. Now, if you have previously watched this episode of the Clone Wars, was this the best portrayal of General Grievous in the whole Clone Wars series? For me, definitely yes. Another one would be also during Season 1, was when Ahsoka had to fight Grievous. And that was an interesting concept there as well, because she had no chance. Another kind of tidbit of knowledge for you is, did you know Anakin Skywalker only ever met General Grievous once? And that was during Revenge of the Sith, during the movie. I didn't know that until a couple days ago, which was, I guess it makes sense because I've never seen him fight Grievous, but Ahsoka did, Obi-Wan did, blah, 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 and it's interesting. Did this episode make the Clone Wars feel more serious? I think for me, it definitely did. It made it feel gritty and kind of scary, I guess, that this person may die or that person may die, and I think it really depends on how knowing previously that Plo Koon doesn't die because he's still in the Jedi Council in Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. But there's that thought of what happens if he dies, Did Clone Wars make you appreciate clone troopers more than the prequel films did? 100%. The Clone Wars is known for being one of the best portrayals of how the clone troopers were, with building up their relationships and their humanity and that kind of thing. Could the Malevolence have changed the outcome of the war if it survived long? 100%. In later episodes, it tried to go after a medical station for sick or wounded clones. It almost succeeded, but not quite, but we'll get to that later on. Rising Malevolence is one of the first episodes that truly shows what Clone Wars is capable of. The episode balances action, tension, emotional storytelling, world building, while significantly improving the portrayal of both the clone troopers and General Grievous. It also begins establishing many of the themes that later makes the series so impactful, particularly the emotional humanity of the clones and the personal relationships between Jedi and soldiers. For an early Season 1 episode, Rising Malevolence still holds up extremely well and remains one of the stronger episodes in the beginning of the series. So for me, at the end of every episode, I do like to give a episodic rating. I believe the last one I gave a 6 or a 7. For this one, I'm going to give an 8.5, and that is simply because of the things that I've stated. It's the first time we see Grievous in the Clone Wars. First time we see a possibility of the Jedi losing, or the Republic losing. It is the first time we really see Ahsoka and Anakin working together. The first episode we didn't see Ahsoka and Anakin at all. They were obviously introduced in the Clone Wars movie, which was not. I think that came out before the Clone Wars episodes did. When I say Clone Wars, I'm talking about the Clone Wars series, not Attack of the Clones. But yeah, I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10 because it had excellent atmosphere, strong character moments, and one of the best early portrayals of General Grievous. So that is going to bring us to a close for this episode. We've been going for around 35 minutes or so. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. If you have any questions for us or anything like that, give us a follow, drop us a comment down below. Remember, we do have a giveaway that's going to be done in episode 10. At that stage, I will be able to physically show the prop. Again, it's just going to be a display piece, but a piece like this usually goes for $150 to $200. So it's definitely something that you will enjoy if you do end up winning our giveaway. Next time on Republic Frequency, we continue the Malevolence arc as the Republic attempts to stop Grievous before the superweapon can destroy even more fleets. And as I said, we will be having a giveaway, episode 10. Leave us a like, a follow, feel free to subscribe as well. Obviously, we are on YouTube, youtube.com/Republic Frequency. For now, may the Force be with you, and thank you for listening to the Republic Frequency.